I'm a big science fiction fan. Some of my recent favorites include Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary, as well as the Bobbyverse universe by Dennis E. Taylor, for which I'm very much looking forward to the next book in this series coming out next month, I believe. Being a big science fiction fan, I was very much excited when Keanu Reeves announced that he would be publishing a science fiction novel in collaboration with a seasoned science fiction author China Miéville. I was very much excited to get my hands on it as soon as it was released, and this week was the day. So the book, of course, that we are talking about today is the Book of Elsewhere by Keanu Reeves and China Miéville. It's a story set in the comic book universe Berserker, which is also by Keanu Reeves, as far as I understood. I have not read any of the comic books. I understood that there was no need to read the comic books first, as this was a story on its own. So the Book of Elsewhere is about an immortal being that is on his journey on the look for his own mortality, basically, and the people that he meets along the way. And it's over a time span of about 80,000 years that the book is told and is jumping back and forth in timeline. Now for this book, I saw that there will be an audiobook by Audible released, partly narrated by Keanu Reeves. So I was thinking to myself, okay, let's get the audiobook, let's listen to it. It's going to be a great experience. Listen to Keanu Reeves with his husky voice telling that story, the voice that we all know from his movies. And I started listening to the audiobook, and one of the first few chapters was narrated by him, which I absolutely enjoyed. It's a great narration. I just love his voice, basically. And I did see that it's not all narrated by him. There's quite a few people on the list of narrators. So it was an ensemble of cast narrating the story. Usually I do not enjoy audiobooks that are narrated by multiple people, because to me, it feels very confusing if it's, jumping back and forth between a different voice. So I was a little bit worried that I would not like the production of the audiobook, and unfortunately, I did not. The few parts spoken by Keanu Reeves were amazing, but, out of the 12 hours that this audiobook is long, he probably narrated about, 30 minutes tops, which I find almost a little bit of false advertising, to be honest with you. I was very disappointed. The other thing that is a big issue for me is that this production feels a little bit rushed, and post-production, I don't know what happened there. Jumping between the different narrators, there's a significant change in speed of the narration. So I would find myself sometimes slowing down to, 0.9 speed. And sometimes I had to speed it up to almost 1.5 speed. The other thing that made me cringe a little bit as a native German speaker is one of the first few chapters is called The Doctor Story. And it's narrated by an Austrian doctor, I believe, so a German native speaker. And the accent that they gave this guy is just absolutely ridiculous. I'm very well aware that I have an accent as well, quite a strong accent. But listening to him, I could hardly understand what he is saying because I was so much focused on that cringe-worthy accent of his. So, couldn't they just get a native German speaker to speak those lines in English, and then there would be a natural accent? The other thing is, I checked some reviews of the audiobook when it started, and there was like one person writing, I had to actually buy the ebook as well because the introduction of the characters was so chaotic that he didn't understand what was going on, especially in the first chapter. I had to go through the first chapter 2 or 3 times to finally understand what was happening in there. So for me, the audiobook, it's priced at, if you don't have a membership with Audible, it's priced at like, $22 or something. And I'm sorry to say, it's absolutely not worth that price. So, but apart from the audio production of the book, what did I actually think about the book and the content itself? And the plot, the premise is very interesting, is very intriguing. I thought, if done well, this could be an amazing book. This immortal being on his path to finding mortality sounded very exciting to me. But unfortunately, this story lacks a story. I believe, in short, what we have here is basically proof of why it's best for Keanu Reeves to be an actor and not an author. I don't want the full hate of the internet, coming down on me. I absolutely love Keanu Reeves as an actor. He's a great actor. I love him in so many movies from growing up. And maybe the comic series Berserker is very enjoyable, and it works well as a graphic novel. But what didn't work well was this book, and I'm not sure how much he actually wrote and how much China Miéville wrote. I've never read any of China Miéville's other books. As far as I understand, he specializes in weird fantasy, and weird definitely comes through in this book. The main problem is really that throughout the 12 hours of listening, you are sitting there thinking, okay, when does the story start? There is no novel here. There is no beginning and end. There is no development or progress of a plot happening here. Almost zero. You have this main plot line where this being called B, also called Unute, or Death himself, is on the search for his own mortality, and he is, a cooperation, or his work with a United States Black Ops team and various assignments that he has with that team. And I don't want to go too much into the plot, and I don't want to release any spoilers, but basically he is helping them with his skill sets, and in exchange, he is hoping that they will be able to help him find his own mortality. Now, what I did find interesting that, for an immortal being, 80,000 years old, you could understand that this person would want to maybe die at some point, that he is getting tired or sick of the world. An interesting statement from him basically is, I don't want to die, but I want to have the possibility of death, which he does not have at the moment. So I found that very intriguing. But the problem, again, there is this plot line of him helping those Black Ops officers. And it's always a chapter of that main plot line. And then there's a chapter sometime set in the past of a person that has crossed paths with B, with death over those 80,000 years ago. And then there's another chapter of the main plot line. So it's always, one by one. If you look at the whole main plot line and compress it, there is almost no story told here. Nothing happens. Nothing happens in this book. There's a lot of, talk about themes of death, and then there's a lot of self-reflection. But I wouldn't call it a fantasy novel. I wouldn't call it a science fiction action novel. It's almost a contemplation of what life is and what death is. And then if you look at those individual chapters told by those individual people that met him or crossed paths with him, those stories are even more abstract, and they are even more, you could almost say those people are telling poems, because there again, there is no clear plot, there is no development or introduction of characters. It's just people reflecting on how they met this person and how it impacted their life. It's very difficult to, go through this book and go through these chapters and trying to find some story in here, or trying to connect with any of these characters. Basically, except for B, for Unute, all the other people, they have the same character. They are almost the same person. All those Black Ops officers, they may carry a different name, but there's almost zero character development between them, or, backstory or anything that would make you connect with any of these people. So it's very abstract, it's very chaotic. It's been a very hard listen for me to even finish. I very seldom start a book and then not finish it, but here, to be honest, if it weren't for this review, I would probably have put the audiobook away after 2 or 3 hours listening to it, because it was just so much of a pain to get through that whole thing. Going into the rating, and I do want to, just look at a few ratings here of what other people thought. When I started the book and after the first few chapters, I was like, what is this? I don't understand. What is happening here? Is something wrong here? Where is the story? So I went into the reviews and tried to make sense of that. So one of the first few ones is confusing at first, but quite amazing. And it said, okay, you need to get through the first few chapters, which are very confusing, and then the plotline gets easier to follow. So after reading this, I said to myself, okay, maybe that's what it is. Let's go a little bit further into it. But then you go on reading and you think, okay, there's some sort of story here. And then the next intersected chapter of a person comes, or, and it's so abstract, and it's just listening to it 30-40 minutes and nothing happens. It's just a deliberation of life and what this being of B is. And it's again, no plot, no action, just contemplation, basically. There's others that, just called disjointed, which I think is a very fitting word for this book. Multiple narrative threads were not helped with multiple narrators in the audio version. As others mentioned in here as well, there's no central story, there's no cohesive or underlying story that is connecting everything together. It's just not there. So from me, for this book, The Book of Elsewhere by Keanu Reeves and China Miéville, unfortunately, that's a clear 1 out of 5 stars from me. I cannot recommend this book with a clear conscience to read to anybody. I'm very sorry to say. So I'm just going to stick to my science fiction that I know and love, and very much looking forward to the next Bobbyverse story coming out in September. But do let me know what you guys thought about The Book of Elsewhere. Maybe I'm completely wrong here, but that's how I felt about this story. It just didn't click for me. It didn't give anything to me. And it was just a pain of 12 hours listening to that story, I'm sorry to say. So yeah, guys, see you on the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.